All good? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, today the Coalition is releasing its final budget costings. And today we confirm our pledge to the Australian people. We will put in place the tools necessary to help to grow the Australian economy, to give Australian families job security, importantly to give them more control of their lives. We are going to do this by improving the budget bottom line by over $6 billion. And we're going to start paying down Labor's mountain of debt by more than $16 billion. The Coalition has already announced over $31 billion of savings. Today, I'm announcing a further $9 billion of savings. As I said 10 days ago, we released the bulk of our savings. This all puts a lie to Mr Rudd's claim of a black hole of $70 billion. It makes a lie of Mr Rudd's claim that we're cutting everywhere. In fact, we're increasing expenditure in health and education. It makes a lie of Mr Rudd's claim that the Coalition isn't serious about laying down a package of reforms that actually grow the Australian economy. Because everything we have announced during this campaign and we announced today is about growing the productive capacity of the Australian economy. I want to emphasise the process that we've been through. We have been through one of the most comprehensive fiscal policy development programs in Australian politics. It's not an overnight program. We haven't made it up as we've gone along, as Labor has. What we've done is have an 8-month-long process overlaid on the 3-year term in opposition. We've focused on having sensible internal policy processes. We've taken those policies to the Parliamentary Budget Office and we've set up an independent panel to verify, importantly, all the numbers that are presented today, and they show that we are living within our means. The Coalition has released over 700 pages of detailed policies during this election campaign, compared with 200 from Labor. Now, by contrast, Labor has failed to release its costings. In fact, 13 policies are yet to be verified from Labor by anyone other than themselves. So all of our policies are fiscally responsible and independently verified. Now, I'm going to ask Andrew to say a bit about infrastructure, importantly, but I want to say how we're going to pay for infrastructure. There's a reallocation of funds on infrastructure. And this is a hugely important package to improve the productive capacity of the Australian economy. We are going to cut the growth in foreign aid to pay for necessary infrastructure here in Australia. We need to do this to grow our economy. We can only be a more generous nation to the rest of the world if we have a strong Australian economy. And so we are reducing the growth in foreign aid by $4.5 billion over the forward estimates to fund essential infrastructure here in Australia. There are modest additional savings. We are rephasing the Murray-Darling water buyback scheme, and we are obviously, and how important it is, going to focus on removing waste in the public sector. I say to the Australian people, if you're looking for cuts, the Coalition is going to cut the carbon tax, the Coalition is going to cut the mining tax, the Coalition is going to cut the waste. And on Saturday, I urge the Australian people to cut Kevin Rudd and a broken Labor Party. Throughout this campaign, they have lied. They continued to do so today. We are the only party that is delivering a program for growth, for job security and giving back the Australian economy to the Australian people.
Thanks, mate. Thanks, Joe. I'd just like to make 3 points on infrastructure and 1 on policy. The net effect of this package is an increase in growth. we're going for growth and going for growth in jobs while living within our means. One crucial element of this going for growth objective is the infrastructure program that's outlined in these documents. Let me make 3 points about the infrastructure program. Firstly, the Coalition has committed over $90 billion in road, rail freight and bridge funding around Australia, and we'll get to work immediately if we're elected on the weekend, and over $10 billion of that money will be spent within the forward estimates across literally dozens and dozens of projects. This will all be fully funded, as Joe has said, by setting new priorities within existing budget resources. Firstly, there's $6.3 billion of existing government funding in the Nation Building program. And secondly, again, as Joe has mentioned, $4.5 billion will be redirected from the overseas aid budget, because Australia can best provide sustainable assistance overseas when our economy is strong and the budget is in a sustainable surplus. That's why we propose to cut the growth of foreign aid and put the $4.5 billion into infrastructure. It is the responsible thing to do when you consider that we are currently borrowing from overseas to fund our foreign aid commitments that Australia is making. It is not sustainable to maintain that situation. Secondly, you'll see that we're front-end loading a lot of the infrastructure spend so that we get projects up and away. This compares with Labor, who are promising funding of so many projects, but so many of them are on the never-never, such as the Very Fast Train project, which I think is programmed to be introduced in 2035, would you believe? Yesterday's national growth figures confirmed that the economy is stalling. So there is an imperative that the incoming government does whatever it can to boost economic activity and job growth. Getting projects away quickly will boost productivity, it'll boost growth and it'll boost growth in jobs. Thirdly, on infrastructure, we've committed to funding 80% of all nationally significant road projects, with the states committing 20%. This compares with the Rudd government, which has been funding an increasing number of projects on a 50-50 basis rather than the traditional 80-20 basis. And in this way, a coalition government will free up funds for the states to invest greater amounts in their traditional responsibility of urban rail. And finally, just on the policy, the lies and the nonsense peddled about the policies and the costings by Mr Rudd and Mr Bowen and Ms Wong have been blown away by the release today of these coalition costings. Today, as Joe said, it is the final step of a 3-year journey of progressive policy development with all of our 30 shadow ministerial colleagues, then the costing of those policies, and then the constant review of this work as the government's budget has steadily fallen apart. In fact, there are many policies, quite a lot of policies, that we've had to put aside because the budget would no longer sustain a lot of that policy work. We have 50 election policy documents totalling nearly 720 pages on the Liberal Party website. By contrast, the ALP has released 32 policies totalling nearly 180 pages. So we've clearly put out a lot more policy detail, and today we've confirmed that all of our policies are fully funded, and the net effect will be fixed $16 billion reduction in debt, a $6 billion improvement in the budget bottom line, and an increase in jobs and growth. Thanks.
Okay. Questions?
Mr Rob, can you define what are projects of national significance and good examples of them?
Well, we've got many examples. If you look to the documentation, projects which are believed by the... Yes, indeed. Coalition's plan to reduce traffic congestion, the East-West Link. We're going to pay $1.5 billion of that project, but with key projects like the Bruce Highway and others, as we enter into negotiations, we will be looking to pay on the national roads. We'll be looking to pay, like the Bruce Highway, which is the main artery into the north of Australia. We'll be paying an 80-20 contribution with the states over time.
Mr. Hockey, $6 billion turnaround, pretty eager. So a bit over that period of time.
No, I don't see a $6 billion improvement in the budget bottom line as trivial. I see it as significant. And we're turning around the direction of the budget. Under Labor, the deficits are getting bigger, the debt's getting bigger. Under the coalition, from opposition, we're putting forward a proposal that turns the deterioration in the budget around and starts to deliver a saving to the budget bottom line, and we start to pay down Labor's debt.
That's a very fragile adjustment. Small change in any metric will just wipe that out.
I wouldn't trivialise it at all. That's $6 billion of real money and taxpayers' money.
What percentage of the budget?
We'll go to other questions. That's right.
Your foreign affairs spokeswoman said it was appalling last year when Labor changed its foreign aid objectives and spending. This is a fairly big broken promise from Charles this year.
No, it's Labor that has broken its promise every year in relation to foreign aid. Every year. What we're saying is that we can't continue to fund a massive increase in foreign aid at the expense of investment in the Australian economy, to get the Australian economy to grow at trend and hopefully above trend growth. So we have to cut the growth in foreign aid to fund Australian infrastructure, because the stronger the Australian economy, the more generous we can be in the future.
You talk about increasing jobs and increasing growth. Do you expect to be better than the unemployment figures that are put forward by Treasury and the RBA? Do you expect to see unemployment lower than 6.25%? And do you expect to see growth reaching back to trend, and how quickly?
Well, you see in our package we have focused on bringing forward infrastructure spending to try and get the growth story going in Australia. Now, part of the growth story is the 1st of July next year, we abolish the carbon tax and we abolish the mining tax. And the 1st of July the following year, we reduce company tax. Now, there's a clear pathway there, together with upfront infrastructure spending, that shows we are putting in place the dynamics necessary to have a growth trajectory for the Australian economy. And if you improve growth, you start to take the unemployment rate down from what the government's currently forecasting.
Do you think we will reach the levels of 6.25%?
I hope we don't. We are going to do, you know, the worst thing you can do to an Australian family is cause a loss of jobs. Kevin Rudd inherited an unemployment rate with a 4 in front of it. He's leaving Australia with an unemployment rate that's heading with a 6 in front of it. Up to 800,000 Australians unemployed. Now, we've got to do everything we can to arrest the increase in the unemployment rate.
Mr. Hockey, what percentage does a $6 billion turnaround represent? That's about 1.5% or
growth.
Well, look,
Are you happy with the 1%?
no, look, I am leaving our budget numbers in better shape than what we're spending, which is a stark contrast to what Labor's done. You know, the fact is, Labor in its costings yesterday, which it released and only partially released, had billions of dollars that was unfunded from some mysterious pool in the budget that they haven't told anyone about. But Kevin Rudd's thought bubbles haven't been funded. His thought bubble on the Northern Territory, unfunded. His thought bubble on a railway between Brisbane and Melbourne, unfunded. His next thought bubble I was expecting was going to be to put Australians on the moon by 2050. Thank God he didn't announce that. But that's the thought bubble process that remains unfunded as part of the Labor Party's plan, so-called plan, for the future of Australia. Yes, sir.
The budget is in crisis. $6 billion with respect doesn't actually fix the crisis, does it? That is fiddling.
We cannot fix the budget crisis from opposition. Only an emphatic decision by the Australian people on Saturday to get rid of the chaos, to get rid of the minority government, and to give a strong vote to the coalition. That's the only way we can fix the budget.
The revenue side.
Sorry, over, sir.
The revenue
Yeah.
Plan. What happens when the commission board comes down and says
Well, the Commission of Audit is going to focus on getting rid of the waste and having a more efficient public sector in Canberra. Now, even from opposition, we've been able to identify projects like $160,000 on an examination of sexuality and Islamic interpretations of reproductive health technologies in Egypt. I don't see that as a good spend of Australian taxpayer money. Or a $443,000 study into the God of Hegel's post-Kantian idealism. I don't see that as a good spend of Australian taxpayers' money. I don't see a good spend of Australian taxpayers' money 5 years after the GFC sending out cheques for $900 to backpackers overseas. We've got to get rid of the waste. We've got to have a more efficient public sector, and that's what our Commission of Audit will do. Michael? Yeah.
You're talking about 42 billion in savings, sorry, by reprioritising Indigenous policy.
Sorry, 40.
Reprioritising Indigenous policy reform. One of the new savings, the third of the savings.
Sorry, which number are you referring to?
The last page, the third one, reprioritise Indigenous policy reform program.
9.3.
What does that mean? And is that in breach of the not funding?
No. That effectively deals with legal aid services delivered by contractors at various sites. There has been some change in that program, and what we've said is we're scaling it back by about 20%. Indigenous aid. Yes, sir.
I just want to go back to the foreign aid issue.
Yeah.
You say you're committed to meeting the Millennium Development of 0.5% of GDP foreign aid. You don't say when, and is there a
Yeah.
time frame?
Well, the first thing we have to do is to strengthen the Australian economy, strengthen the government's balance sheet, and that means that we can be more generous with foreign aid.
So basically you want to get back to surplus?
Well, we still are committed to the Millennium Goal, but we've got to fix our budget first. The best way to fix the budget is to grow the Australian economy.
But your commitment therefore stands, but you won't do it until you get back to surplus.
Well, we're determined. We are determined. If I can emphasise again, we are determined to fix the Australian budget. If we fix the Australian budget, we can be more generous with foreign aid. I can't give you a timetable on that.
But does that not make sense? You follow it. You're saying when you get back to surplus when you fix the budget, yes?
I said, and I'll say it again, we want to strengthen the Australian economy, to strengthen the budget, to be more generous into the future. Any other questions? Yeah.
Will there be in the redirection of money within that foreign? Are you going to say you'll send less to this?
Julie Bishop will be announcing our foreign aid policy as we speak, and you'll see a focus more on support for non-government organisations than investment in multilaterals. Tim, yeah. We'll just take two more and then, yeah.
Existing funding allocated from National Building Program, $6.1 billion. Is this existing funding that is allocated to particular projects, or is it a pool that's not been allocated yet, or what is?
You want to talk about that?
Okay. The 6.1 is the current commitment of funds by this government in projects, right? So, in many respects, if you look above that figure, all of those projects, some of them are new spending, some of them are total new spending on projects, some of them have extension, so we're spending more on the projects than the Commonwealth, and some of them we put a different nature of the project, like the South Road in Adelaide. We're doing one section, the government is proposing to do another as a priority. So embedded in that 11 billion is some government spending, right? So in order to get a net figure, so we don't double count, we take that 6 billion of existing project spending, some of which is embedded up top, so that we end up with a bottom line increase down the bottom of the page of $4.676 billion.
Right. But apart from these specific ones you've mentioned below that, there are no other projects?
No, that's right.
Okay, two more questions.
Nothing is off limits.
Yep.
Does that include health and education?
We are actually increasing the funding for health and education. That's what we're doing. Now, Kevin Rudd said cut, cut, cut. We're not cutting health, we're not cutting education, and we're not cutting defence. As you can see, our numbers are plainly there. Now, if there is waste, of course we will get rid of waste. I think that's the appropriate thing to do. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hockey, say whether the coalition's planning to a revenue budget before the end.
Look, we're focused on Saturday. If the Australian people endorse us on Saturday, I'd say we'll talk about that afterwards. I'd just say let's end the chaos. Let's end the chaos in Canberra. And the only way to do that is to have an emphatic vote for the coalition on Saturday. No more minority parties, no more waste, no more lies from Labor. The Labor Party is broken. And the Australian people have the chance on Saturday to reclaim their country, and we have proven yet again that the coalition is the only one that is going to pay down Labor's debt, start to fix the budget, provide job security for Australians and deal with the cost of living issues that everyday Australians are concerned about. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Joe Hockey, the Shadow Treasurer, and Andrew Robb there. We now have the costings information.